Sergeant John M. Ryan rode with Major Marcus Reno's battalion on June 25, 1876 and recounted, Reno's battalion started down the valley, first on a trot, and then at a gallop, marching in columns of twos. Lieutenant Varnum, a very brave young officer in command of the Scouts, rode ahead of Reno's battalion. He swung his hat around in the air, and sung out to the men, 30 days furlough to the man who gets the first scalp. We were then in the valley of the Little Bighorn, and facing downstream. We started down on a trot and then on a slow gallop. Private James Turley of my troop, when we arrived at the timber and had orders to halt, could not control his horse, which carried him towards the Indian camp. That was the last I saw of him. In the Indian camp after the battle, when we were destroying it, we found the heads of 3 of our men tied together with wires and suspended from a lodge pole with their hair all burned off. We did not see their bodies there. The Indians probably threw them into the river. We dismounted in haste, forming a skirmish line and facing downstream in the direction of the Indian camp. Some of the men laid down while others knelt down. We got the skirmish line formed, and here the Indians made their first charge. There were probably 500 of them coming from the direction of their village. They were well mounted and well armed. They tried to cut through our skirmish line. We fired volleys into them, repulsing their charge and emptying a number of their saddles. Finally, when they could not cut through us, they commenced to circle. They overlapped our skirmish line on the left and were closing in on the rear to complete the circle. We had orders to fall back to our horses. Major Reno had lost his hat and had a red handkerchief tied around his head. As we mounted, I looked to the rear in the direction of the river and saw the Indians completing the circle, riding through the brush and lying flat on their ponies. I mentioned the fact to Captain French, saying, "Captain, the Indians are in our rear." He answered, "Oh, no, those are General Custer's men." Just at that moment one of those Indians fired, and Private George Lawrence of my company was shot, the bullet striking him in the back of his neck and coming out of his mouth. Just at that moment the Indians fired into us from all sides, and I said to Captain French of my company, "The best thing that we can do is to cut right through them." By this time they had us surrounded. Major Reno rode up and said, "Any of you men who wish to make your escape, follow me." The order was then given to charge, and away we went up the steep embankment, cutting through the Indians in a solid body, Major Reno being in advance. As we cut through them the fighting was hand to hand, and it was death to any man who fell from his horse, or was wounded and was not able to keep up with the command.